II. In the year 1600, a fleet of wooden ships battled treacherous waves, sailing towards a distant, fabled land. They came for trade, but ended up ruling for 2 centuries. This is the story of how a British trading company conquered a subcontinent. It all began in London, with a stroke of a pen, sports, on the last day of the 16th century. Queen Elizabeth I granted a royal charter to a group of ambitious merchants, officially creating the Governor and Company of Merchants of London trading into the East Indies. More simply, the East India Company. Their mission: to break the Dutch and Portuguese monopoly on the lucrative spice trade. Their destination: India. After a perilous journey, their ships finally dropped anchor at the port of Surat. Imagine the scene: a vibrant, chaotic city teeming with life. The air thick with the aroma of cardamom, cinnamon, and cloves. Merchants from across the world haggled in bustling markets, their stalls overflowing with shimmering silks, precious gems, and exotic spices. Seals. For the English sailors, this was a world of unimaginable wealth and opportunity. But to trade here, they needed permission from the most powerful man in the land. Enter the Mughal Empire, a dynasty at the zenith of its power, ruling over a vast and prosperous India. The British envoys, led by figures like Sir Thomas Roe, made their way to the magnificent court of Emperor Jahangir, presented lavish gifts, carriages, and paintings bowing before the conqueror of the world. In return for these trinkets, Jahangir, amused by these persistent foreigners, granted them the right to trade and establish small factories, or trading posts, on the coast. Saw them, as humble merchants, little more than a curious distraction. It was a decision that would change the course of Indian history forever. With the Mughals' blessing, the company's footprint grew. They established fortified trading posts that would soon become major cities: Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta. These weren't just warehouses. They were small English enclaves, complete with forts, churches, and administrative buildings. The company wasn't alone. However, they faced stiff competition from other European powers, particularly the French and the Portuguese, leading to frequent naval skirmishes and battles for control of key trading routes. The Indian Ocean became a chessboard for European ambitions. Slowly but surely, the British, with their superior naval power and aggressive business tactics, began to sideline their rivals, tightening their grip on India's coastal trade. But as profits soared, so did greed. The line between merchant and mercenary began to blur. Company officials, far from the prying eyes of London, started amassing personal fortunes through private trade and corruption. They exploited local artisans and weavers, forcing them to sell their goods at rock-bottom prices, leading to widespread suffering among Indian merchants and craftsmen who couldn't compete. The motive was no longer just trade. It was outright exploitation. To protect their growing interests and enforce their will, the company began raising its own private army. They recruited Indian soldiers, known as sepoys, and trained them in European warfare techniques, led by British officers. This private militia, paid for by company profits, soon became one of the most formidable military forces in India. They were no longer just merchants asking for permission. They were a power broker, ready to use force to get what they wanted. They began meddling in local politics, forging alliances with some Indian princes, and fighting wars against others. The company started playing a dangerous game of divide and rule, pitting local rulers or nawabs against each other to expand its own influence. The stage was set for a monumental clash. The turning point came in Bengal, the richest province of the Mughal Empire. The young and fiery Nawab, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, grew alarmed by the company's growing military power and blatant disregard for his authority. He ordered them to halt their military expansion in Calcutta. The British refused. In response, the Nawab captured the city. This act of defiance could not be tolerated by the company. Enter Robert Clive, a cunning and ruthless company clerk, turned commander. He was tasked with retaking Calcutta and punishing the Nawab. But Clive knew a direct assault was risky. Instead, he chose deception. Secretly, conspired with Mir Jafar, Siraj-ud-Dowlah's ambitious and disgruntled commander-in-chief, promising to make him the new Nawab of Bengal in exchange for his betrayal. On a dark, stormy morning on June 23, 1757, the two armies met at Plassey. On one side, Siraj-ud-Dowla's massive army of nearly 50,000 men, with Siraj-ud-Dowla gone and their puppet, Mir Jafar, on the throne. The East India Company became the de facto rulers of Bengal. The mask of a trading company was finally dropped. They seized the state's treasury and gained the right to collect taxes, the Diwani, from the entire province. A flood of wealth, once the lifeblood of Bengal, was now diverted into the company's coffers in London. The transition was complete. What began as a quest for spices had culminated in the conquest of a kingdom, oars across India. British flags were hoisted over forts and palaces, where Mughal banners once flew. Indian commoners, who once paid taxes to their local rulers, now paid them to a foreign corporation. The once mighty Mughal Empire was reduced to a shadow of its former self, its influence fading into memory. The map of India began to change, province by province, slowly turning red under British control. A commercial enterprise had become an imperial power, setting the stage for nearly 2 centuries of British rule, a period that would forever shape the destiny of India. Thank you so much for joining us on this historical journey. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the past. We'll see you in the next video.